After going through this video, you will be able to explain the importance of the inspect element, explore various tabs present on the inspect element panel, edit the CSS code of any web page and see how it affects the web page. Do you know we can view the CSS code of Google, Facebook, YouTube or any website that exists on the internet? If you didn't know, the answer is yes. But how? Let's see. We can view the CSS code of any website through inspect element. Inspect element is a browser integrated developers tool that is present in almost all the widely used web browsers. Also, it helps us in debugging the code. As mentioned earlier, inspect element helps us to view and also edit the CSS code of any website. But the changes that we will make will only be reflected to us and are temporary. This means once we refresh the browser, all those changes will be reverted to the original form. This is because the actual CSS file that is present on the server remains unaffected. Let us see how web developers across the world use this tool to its full potential. In this video, we will be using Google Chrome web browser to inspect the code of a website. Don't worry if you are using any other browser, as the only difference will be in the way the options are present. So, let us inspect the CSS of trainings.internshala.com. You may choose any website which you want to inspect. To view the HTML and CSS, we will right click on the screen. This will open a panel, and at the bottom of the panel, we will see the inspect element option. Let us click on this option. This will open the inspect panel on the right side of the browser window. If we want to close this inspect panel, we can click here on the cross sign. But let us again open the inspect panel and explore more options. To the left of the cross sign, there are 3 dots. If we click on them, it will open a panel that has multiple options. But in this panel, we are only concerned with the dock side option. The dock side helps us place or dock the inspect element panel on any side of the screen. Here we can see it has 4 docking options. Currently, we have the dock to right option selected, which is the reason the inspect element panel appears to be on the right side. If we want, we can place it at the bottom or the left side of the browser window. Let me do this for you. Here we can see this at the left side. Now let us put it at the bottom. Here we go. Now, not only that, we can even dock the inspect element panel to a new window like this. We will select the dock to bottom option, as this offers a convenient way to view the HTML and CSS code side by side, which we will understand shortly. Once we dock the inspect element panel to the bottom, we can then resize the panel as per our convenience. But make sure that you can also view the website. Next, we have the main menu of the inspect element panel. Here, we have multiple tabs like Elements, Console, Sources, Network, and so on. Only the Elements tab is related to CSS, and that is why we will be exploring only this tab in this video. In the Elements tab, we have 2 sections. On the left, we have the HTML section that contains the HTML code of the website, and on the right, we have the CSS section that contains the corresponding CSS code of the website. On the left section, we can see that the code contains different HTML elements. If we hover the mouse over any HTML element, we can see that the corresponding element on the web page gets highlighted. For example, here we have a paragraph element having the content online trainings we offer. If we hover the mouse over this element, we can see that the corresponding element on the web page is highlighted. Again, if we hover the mouse over any image, we can see the height and width of the image in pixels. Here, the image is 338 pixels in width and 334 pixels in height. If we click on any of these elements present on the left side, we can see all the CSS properties that were applied to this particular element on the right side. For example, here we see this paragraph is provided with an ID no more. Now, whatever style property we add to this ID, it gets applied to this element, which we can see on the right side. Similarly, any style added to a paragraph tag in general gets applied to this element, which is also listed here on the right side. So basically, the right section shows all the CSS code snippets that directly or indirectly style the selected element. Now if we hover over any of the code snippets, we can see the file name and the line number in which the code snippet is present. To view the file, we can click on the code snippet, which will open the file in a new tab, and we can find the code snippet in that file. Well, the file which we are seeing right now is a minified CSS file, which is difficult for humans to read. We will understand more about the minified CSS files in the next module. If we scroll down further on the right side, we can see the box model of this selected element. You already know that a box model consists of 4 internal boxes. And here also we can see that the box model consists of 4 different colored boxes. Blue box represents the content, green box represents the padding, yellow box represents the border, and the orange box represents the margin. Each of these boxes has dimensions mentioned over them that represent the amount of space it takes. If we take our cursor over any of these boxes, let's say the content box, the content part of the element gets highlighted on the page with the blue color. This means if we take our cursor over any of these boxes, the element part corresponding to the box is highlighted on the web page with that specific color. Let us move the cursor over the margin box this time. We can see that only the margin part of the element which is present only at the bottom side is highlighted in the orange color. Also, if we take our cursor over the HTML code of the element, we can see that the entire element gets highlighted with different colors highlighting different sections. This gives us a very visual understanding of how the elements are placed on the web page. Now, let us discuss the menu that is present in the right section. This menu also contains several tabs like styles, computed, event listeners, and many more. We have already discussed the style tab, and now let us explore the computed tab. The computed tab starts with a box model, and below that we can see all the style properties that are applied to a particular element in an alphabetical order. If we expand these properties, we can see the details where these properties have been defined. Here, we can see the color property has been defined at different places, and every time it overrides the previous definition. Let us click on color and see what happens. Note that we need to click on this icon that appears to be a right arrow. So, it takes us to the styles tab and shows us where it has been defined. Similarly, you can click on any other style property and see where all it has been defined. Now, let's explore another option that is present at the top of the computed tab. Here we see the show all option. Let's click on it. It allows us to see those options that are applied by default. This means that for certain elements where we do not define the style properties explicitly, we can see all those elements having default properties when we select this option. The computed tab is particularly useful when we want to find what value of a specific property is applied to an element. For example, let's say we want to find out the font size of this paragraph. We will hover the mouse over this paragraph and then we will right click and we will select the inspect element option. This will directly take us to the HTML code of this paragraph and we can see its corresponding CSS code. Now, to know the font size, we will select the computed tab and under the font size we can see the font size as 28 pixels along with all the style properties that are applied to this element. Let me point out one more thing here. Remember when we started the video and for the very first time we selected the inspect element option and we were able to view the corresponding HTML and CSS code? Well, the right click was not random on the screen. We deliberately clicked on the paragraph so that we can directly go to the corresponding code. So do remember, for any element for which we want to view the corresponding HTML and CSS code, we need to right click over that element on the web page, which will take us directly to its HTML and CSS code. Now let's see how we can make the changes to the existing CSS code. This is pretty interesting and important. To make any changes in the existing CSS code, let's go back again to the Styles tab. We can select any value that we want to edit, but for demonstration purposes, let's select the font size for now. Here, the font size is 28 pixels. Let's change it to 10 pixel. We can see that the font size has decreased and is now 10 pixels. Instead of typing in the number, we can also use the up and down arrow keys to change the numeric values. Let us see another example. This time, we will change the margin top value to 20 pixel here for the P tag. We can see that the change is not only applied to this particular paragraph but also to all the paragraph elements of the web page. This means when we change any of the values, the change gets applied to all the elements of the selector. And suppose if we want to remove any CSS property from the web page, we need to simply untick the property and all the style properties will be removed from that particular element. Now you might ask, is it possible to add a new property? The answer is yes. We can add any property, and to do that we need to click anywhere inside the particular selector where we want to add a new property. As the cursor appears, we will enter the property name and it will show all the suggested list of properties. Next, we need to select the property that we want to add and then enter its desired value. Simple, isn't it? But remember, this new property will be applied to all elements of the chosen selector. And just to remind you again that any changes you make using the inspect element tool are temporary and are reflected only to you. So, how can we add a property that does not affect the other elements of the web page? For this, we can add the new property to element.style. This adds the property inline without affecting the other elements of the web page. Lastly, we have a toggle device toolbar. We can find this on the left side of the main menu of the Inspect Element panel. This helps us to see how the website will look when viewed on different devices that have different widths. If we click on this down arrow, we can see there are few devices already listed which we can select and see how the website will look on these devices. And if we want to specify the width and height, we can do that from here by entering the desired values. This toolbar comes handy and useful when we have to design websites for mobile devices. And when we inspect the website for mobile devices, we dock the Inspect Element panel to the right side of the screen. So that was all about the Inspect Element. Although we have covered a few properties, but these properties are sufficient for now to understand the HTML and CSS code of any website. Please note that companies keep updating their websites on a regular basis, so by the time you have completed watching this video, a lot of properties might have changed. Don't worry, you only need to understand the concept behind the options that we explored and why they are used. You can follow and replicate the steps which we discussed on any website and see how they affect the web page. Up next is a quiz. All the best.